How does this sound? Full day of golf on Saturday, May 26, 2018, where there's contests, fun, food, and friends. I think it sounds great. It's Marietta's new Theater in the Square, only fundraiser for the year. And guess what? I'm going to be there too. And I'll talk to some of the golfers, and some lucky sponsors are going to get a show on Marietta Stories podcast. So won't you check it out? Give Raul Thomas a call at 770-426-4801. And it's Saturday, May 26, 2018. First tee times 11 a.m. It's at the City Club in Marietta on Powder Spring Street. I hope to see you there.
Bring the museum back to life.
You know, people sit out on the front porch hoping people will come by.
Go forth and do good. It's insane. I have the most understanding wife in the world.
I treat everybody the same thing.
Oh, that's the other thing I love about Marietta. It's like a melting pot.
You are listening to Marietta Stories. Each week, veteran podcaster Bill Nowicki brings you the heartwarming, interesting, and fun stories from the people that make the community of Marietta, Georgia, a place to call home. Here's your host, Bill Nowicki.
Here we are with Buddy Finethy. We're at the Hawg and Ale here on, is it Powder Springs?
Powder Springs, 25 Powder Springs Street.
All right. And Marietta, brand new, opened up a couple weeks ago. And I'm super excited to have you here. We were already talking for quite a while, and he has a really fascinating background. And you grew up in a small town in South Carolina called
Possum Kingdom, South Carolina. It was more of an area in a state of mind than a town. It was more of a place most people, jurisdictions especially, avoided.
But it was like a mill town, mill area?
It was an area in between three mill towns, so it was sort of where you shook out to after the mills closed down. But it was a great nuclear containment zone for me to grow up in because it was the rural South, and we were kind of hiding out, so it was a great place to hide out.
And what was because you're really interested in art and music and, of course, food. What were your influences way back when you were a kid?
Oh, I was a pop culture kid from way back. So it was comic books, movies, television, science fiction.
Favorite comic book?
Favorite comic book was anything from Warren Comics. Warren was an oversized magazine imprint that did black and white magazines, but they weren't held to the Comics Code Commission. They were allowed to get away with murder in those magazines, literally. But I was all over the map. I mean, I collected tens and tens of thousands of comics, but that led to an interest in reading. I mean, I probably taught myself to read from comic books, and then I just explored on from there and branched into the superhero comics and things like that. But all the reading led to a world that I wasn't aware of. Being
right, from a rural place. Now, what did your parents do?
My dad was an antiques dealer. He was a junk man for 60 years. Well, he bought junk and he sold antiques. He was from the north, and we were raised in South Carolina because my dad had some legal entanglements that encouraged a southern exposure. We're growing up in a really small place without a whole lot of cultural connection, but he was really good. He would make sure that he brought me piles of books and found us things that kept us interested and engaged. He was pretty broadly read for a man who didn't graduate third grade. So,
what was the South like? This was probably in the 70s?
It was 70s, 60s and 70s. Up where I was, it was still the 30s. So it was very impoverished. We were raised abjectly poor. There was a fire to do better that was instilled in me and my brother both. And our dad had seen so much of the world. He just wanted to acclimate us before he set us loose. I got into art. I would say the teachers were the linchpin to my broadening my horizons, and got into the Governor's School for the Arts in South Carolina. That led to my coming to Atlanta for the Art Institute. I got a scholarship there, and then I finished out my degree up at Reinhardt College in Canton, Georgia, which was good because that was another nuclear containment zone. But it also connected me with the first restaurant I ever did artwork for, and that was R&M Hoagie Shop, which is still open today, a fantastic restaurant in Canton.
So give them a plug. They're in Canton, Georgia?
Canton, Georgia, brother. Mike DeLuca taught me how to interact with the public. He was amazing. He would connect with every person that came into the place. So I would say my love of the restaurant business was seated there. Mellow Mushroom, which I later joined, was the nail in the coffin of that, because there is something about a mindset that really enjoys the service industry, and I was coming at it from the creative side, creates a whole different kind of monster than your average artist is,
Well, you probably became a pretty good listener.
I try to be. Some people will say I maybe talk a little too much, but I love hearing what people have to say, and I love their take on things. And you save yourself so many lessons in life if you hear what somebody else has already been through. You don't have to go through the rough stuff, It was a great education at school, but it was a great education inside that restaurant. And to this day, Mike is probably my biggest fan. He comes to everything we do, so it's fun.
Do you remember any specific time where somebody walked in and he was able to get them engaged and excited about the restaurant?
I mean, the very first murals I did in Mellow Mushroom, really, it was a paradigm change because they were just thrown together places. I came to them in '87 after I had been a staff artist for the Grateful Dead's Relics magazine. I had the portfolio from the restaurant, I had the portfolio from Grateful Dead, and I had the ideas for the characters full blown. They were already fully formed in my notebook when I walked in, but they weren't the Mellow Mushroom they are today. They were barely hanging on. They had just been cleaned out by the tax guys, and I think they were on the verge of not doing well. But we learned together, if we do artwork in the stores, there's an immediate atmosphere building, there's an immediate grasping of where you're coming from that they had not had prior to that, and I think it made all the difference in the world. But a kid's reaction to art is honest. It's real. And when a kid is fascinated and they say, oh boy, no matter what the parents are saying or the adults around them, the real reaction those people are having are the same one the kid's having. And that is amazing. To make people happy with an environment is the greatest thing an artist can possibly do, I think. And we experienced it a lot, and I think it fundamentally changed Mellow Mushroom's approach to what they evolved into.
Tell me about the characters. Why include characters and not just do pretty art?
Well, because I think everybody needs a proxy in a fantasy world. You need your interface, your avatar, as it were. And Mel and Dude with Mellow Mushroom were the everyman proxy, but they were literal representations of real people. And so we created a world. Even if you don't tell the story of that world, if you have that world in your mind, it makes the art you do better and more fully rounded. It makes it make sense. We learned to incentivize people to engage with the artwork by hiding things in it. So we would do 3 or 4 layers deep of different meanings. We would do subconscious, we would do thesis meanings, we'd do in-jokes, we'd hide silly rhymes, we'd put puns in it. Because if a mind is working on your artwork after it leaves it, and on the subconscious level, and you leave enough clues, it will work on it, then they are engaged even more. And that was part of the bedrock of the tribe building thought, because you want people engaged enough to be a part of your tribe. I learned part of that on the job there, but I learned part of it in the Grateful Dead parking lot. The Grateful Dead was the greatest marketing lesson any human being could ever get, because they let it be a self-evolving beast and just gave it guidelines and guideposts. And once it started forming itself, it became bigger than they were. So legend building and this kind of approach to having people become your tribe, it takes some effort, but really most of the effort in their mind, and it's a great thing. I mean, these people want something interesting. All people want something interesting in their lives. If you give them something that is just teasing around the edges of your subconscious, they're in, because it's like solving a problem. It'll nag at you, and you don't solve it till you're in the shower the next morning. And I had people come back to me 3 or 4 years later on some of the artwork and really just be astonished that they got it just then. And we weren't giving the clues away necessarily back then. And so I learned the power of helping the environment help them enjoy themselves. And I really fell in love with people enjoying the environment. After I left Mellow had a different direction they were going in. I retired. I was going to leave the business entirely, just be retired. And I met the guys that are our pit masters now, JD and Donnie, and saw something there, and the food was incredible. And it wasn't the environment that was showing that food off great out there. And so we got to talking. And then I met Dave and Kelly and Howie with Marietta Pizza Company. And all of a sudden, the makings of this superstar restaurant group came together. They had the perfect skill sets to sink in together, and I had just another piece of that. No one piece was stronger than any other piece, but together it was this amazing combination of people that are beautiful people, committed to their community, see things from every angle. They've seen it all in the business. I mean, among us is like 130 years of restaurant. There was this very powerful thing, and they absolutely got where I was coming from with my environmental approach. And to say that these guys are committed to good food is an understatement, because I've seen, amazing, intense conversations over recipes and approaches and service in the place. It's like a three-legged stool with the restaurant business. It's environment, it's food. Good food is the baseline. And with the environment back in its play, and then service. And so that three-legged stool, none of it works without the other. And the food here is so good and so thought out and so committed to freshness that I knew I had the right partnership to accomplish something new. And, I will always treasure my time with Mellow Mushroom. It was the greatest college education from the ground up you could get in building a brand, because there was no brand when I started, and it became a nuclear weapon at the end of it. But here is the same commitment, but it's more of a new mindset with the artisan way that our culture is going. Our culture demands authenticity. Our culture is demanding more thoughtful approach to every part of it. And who is not tired of big box food? The major brands are faltering for a reason. People want restaurants that are committed to their community. They want restaurants that are giving them more than just slopping food on the plate. They want an experience, but they want an authentic experience. And they want an environment that is more than a bunch of televisions turned up loud. They want social entertainment. And that's what the restaurant business is at the end of the day. It's social entertainment. The people in Marietta are energetic, they're positive. I've met no one here that I just wasn't astonished that this many positive, powered people can be in one spot. That I knew this was the right place. And Dave and Kelly and Howie had already had a restaurant here through their generosity. They gratefully to us, we wanted a great spot. They had the perfect spot. And Chantica could have survived forever doing the way it was doing, but they went with our thought that a really great new kind of barbecue place could work here. And the feedback from the public has been tremendous. We've had a great time.
All right, what makes this a different barbecue joint than just someplace down the street?
Well, for one, we actually do think about our environment. I mean, how many times have you been into a barbecue place and it's the same Xerox cliche of the environment? And this is just a metaphor for how we treat the food, because we're thinking about the food in different combinations. We're coming up with new things. We're coming up with new sauces. We're going to have seasonal sauces. But there's also an imagination. There's so much imagination in that kitchen that we almost have to get a rope and tie these guys down a little bit, because they're constantly thinking about what can we do that's new, what can we do that's interesting, what is interesting to us, and then sharing that authentic, journey. And we're treating the artwork in this place the same way, so that everything is a metaphor for itself. We started off here with a very slim budget, to say the least. So it really turned on my MacGyver button. And with my friends Johnny and Jennifer, who came over from Mellow Mushroom with me to get this started, we literally built every piece in here ourselves. And we spent months just struggling, on the slimmest of budgets to get the right look. And actually, instead of that being a negative, it really forced a lot of creativity. We did.
You had to hone your skills.
We did. It got me back on my feet again, because for many years I was a manager. And when you're a manager, you get sedentary in the skill sets itself. And what it did is reinvigorated me as far as the tactile interface with the creation of the stuff. And I knew I had people that were committed to the finishing part of it, which is amazing. In any job, it's amazing to have people to help you finish. And we did work that we're very proud of, because literally we repurposed, salvaged, scraped, borrowed, in some cases found things that fell off a truck, and got the things up, and they all work lockstep together. They're interesting pieces, you know.
Talk a little bit about the music aspect, because I listened to one of your Facebook Lives and how you want to bring not only the art and the food together, but try to put music in that mix too.
Well, I mean, you look at a lot of restaurants and they don't even think about the music that's in there. They just turn something on. And I think that the audio in a restaurant is a landscape in and of itself. It is an environmental, factor in how somebody feels. Music can put you someplace good, or it can put you someplace bad if it's the wrong thing. And that's the debate we have. What's the right music? I'm very much a blues aficionado. I'm very much an authentic Americana oriented guy. And then you have people that have different takes on music. So there's this evolutionary back and forth that we've been doing. But I think that everybody's on the page and we want to bring something new. If we can introduce new music into the public eye, then that's what we want to do, which is part of the reason we're working on the cultural aspect of what is Hawg and Ale's culture. And it is a place where friends let you know what they think is cool. We think these cats are cool. We want you to hear them. We want you to experience them. So we're going to be intersecting information that's available in the store with the music that's playing, with the social entertainment of conversation. If there's things we think people should know, we're going to tell them about it, because there is no bigger music and a diverse music pool as this restaurant has working in it. Everybody here has such great taste in the things they dig that we're exposing each other to amazing stuff. And how can the public not want that? I want it. I want to know about new stuff. I want to know.
But it's not that box type music either. It's going to be authentic stuff.
My musical taste was determined by the Grateful Dead, so of course I'm going to lean towards bluegrass and jam rock and things that are very psychedelic, and then there are people that like a little bit of metal. I got reminded how great some metal was, and I got reminded how great the Beastie Boys at their best was, and I got reminded of how great Bill Monroe at his best was. There's so many fantastic genres out there. We know that we're going to build different audio types into different times of the week or the day, and try and help people set their mood through that. People should come into a restaurant and it should be a fantasy world. The outside world does not exist while you're here, and I have seen amazing results of that. I've seen people who were having literally the worst day of their life come into a restaurant, and that experience in that restaurant gave them a 5-minute respite from the worst day of their lives, and it changed their day, and it might have changed their life. And that's an incredible feeling. It's one of the things that made me fall in love. I went from cartoonist to someone who really loves the restaurant business, and to have people that equal that passion and understand we're not just trudging through a day. We're doing something that really affects people's lives. A few years ago, Coca-Cola estimated that my artwork has been seen 500 million times in my lifetime, and I can't think of very many artists that pursue fine art or highbrow anything that can actually say that. And so that is an intense amount of exposure that you have in a way that people don't even think that art exists. The restaurant business is personal. You take it inside of you, and literally take it inside of you, but you take the psychic residue of it. And to not treat that with the most amazing respect is so shortchanging of everybody, including the people that are doing it in other restaurants. And it's that depersonalization of that in the big box restaurants that are causing this downfall.
Talk about Evel Knievel.
Evel Knievel was the world's greatest P.T. Barnum and daring do ever. When I was a kid, and I guess it was 76, he jumped the Snake River Canyon. That was such an overblown event, and it was so huge, man. And the X2 rocket, and you know what? Evel, from the moment he sat in that thing, knew it wasn't going to make it across there, and he was going to do it anyway. I thought to myself, well, that is commitment in the face of reality on a level that is amazing. And I had the Evel Knievel toys, and I had the Evel Knievel lunchbox, and I had the the Evel Knievel posters up on the wall. And my brother was taking all our bicycles apart in the backyard and never able to put them back together because there were mystery pieces. He didn't know where they went. And so that was just such a huge thing in a time that was so dark Like the early 70s were this robbing America of their faith in things. And then you have this guy in an Elvis jumpsuit jumping on a Harley Davidson that was heavier than anything should be launched off the ground, and still launching himself into the air and doing amazing things. And thank God for Howard Cosell and Wide World of Sports. That was where it was at, brother. So, yeah, Evil was fantastic.
Yeah, and you have a homage to Evel Knievel in the restaurant.
I do. We have our vestibule in front of our restroom. We have the Snake River Canyon mural, and then I hand-carved the X2 rocket because it needed to be loved on. It's still out there somewhere. I hope we can buy it for the place. But it's like Ric Flair. We also have a portrait of Ric Flair done by the great Dirk Hayes, a friend of mine in Atlanta. And Ric Flair is the P.T. Barnum of entertainment sports. And the fact that he's still alive and still spouting what he spouts, it wasn't how he wrestled or what he did in the ring. It was what he said out in public, and he never got off message once. That guy was an amazing exercise and bigger-than-life personality, Boisterous Americana is one of the underlying themes here. Not everybody's going to get it, but what makes an American badass, Evel Knievel was an American badass. Ric Flair is an American badass.
Kiss.
And Kiss is American badasses. Prince is on the front blackboard. Prince was a different kind of American badass. It didn't matter how short he was. He strutted on stage like he was 12 feet tall and did not care. There should be multiple messages in artwork, and so it's the cumulative effect of the different pieces we've got around here. We wanted it to paint a picture that was somewhat nostalgic and somewhat boisterous and somewhat reassuring and nostalgic, but also new and a different combination. It's a trick to build an environment, but I think a restaurant environment is my canvas. It's no one single piece, it's the entire thing. So we paced our lighting inside the restaurant at a certain pace to lead your eye around to a certain place. And we placed pieces strategically to get a certain feeling as you would move around. And in graphic design, when you move your eye from left to right, you're moving into the future. And so we started our journey reading it left to right, leading around 360 up to the front, ending off with Clint Eastwood at the front. Who I got to meet Clint a few years ago, and he remembered that we had sent him a bunch of pizzas up there. So he created a scene inside the Curve just to show off the pizza box with my artwork on it. And I thought, well, I'll return the favor. Clint can be in my movie too, by God. So it was very nice. He was just a great guy, and I think that that's what people need to know about these bigger-than-life personalities. We're all just human beings on a big flying mud ball,
We were talking before we started recording about where art is going now, and you were saying that you have a whole different setup to do T-shirts and what. Tell me about how technology is really changing the way art is being produced.
I think it's a hybridization. Technology. There's a certain energy that's lost in original artwork if it's just generated on digital. And I think that really it's just a tool like any other tool. It's like some people just use an airbrush, but an airbrush is just one tool of a really great piece of artwork. So the digital is one part of a great piece of artwork. There'll never be a complete reclamation of the energy of an original piece of artwork if it's done just that way. So I bounce artwork back and forth. I'll start off digital, go to analog, bounce it back into digital, maybe do a couple other people to combine with it, feed that into digital. But really it's about energy, and creating art should be by any means necessary, because it's not the medium, it's the idea and the message. And art is a language. And if somebody creates a piece of art and it only means something to them and can't mean anything to anybody else, then it's useless. Art should be pure communication, and however you get there, it rationalizes everything. And I think that in the future, now we've got more powerful tools now that are simulating the analog experience in art. But really, at the end of the day, what has your mind created as an idea and where you go with it and how far you take it? That's a real measure of an artist these days, because you could be the poorest cat in this country and still manage to make great artwork. I watched Howard Finster. When I was a kid, I'd hang out at Finster's Paradise Gardens up in Somerville. And I would watch Finster create stuff from pure junk. And to see that man do what he did, not spending a dime on materials. He just trowel cement out and glue some other pieces together and throw it up there, or he would draw with a ballpoint pen and do amazing things. And that informed me so much, because I was like, well, so what if I have to? Our bar sign here, Johnny and I fished styrofoam out of a dumpster, and it's just our hot glue gun in it and painting that thing up there and cutting out, carry out trays to be the glass and salvaging old LEDs. But at the end of the day, we transformed what was junk, or what was, reprehensible to some people, into a great piece that nobody knows wasn't professionally made by a sign shop. And reclamation is another theme in here. We reclaim pallet wood, and the alcove we're sitting in right now is all pallet wood that our friend Brandon Dulo, one of our partners, who was, between Johnny and Jennifer and Dulo, I'd have been sunk over here. But they were in it to win it, and he cut down every board to be a concise size when it was lined up. It helped put everything together in a form that's not going to fall on anybody, and we made artwork out of throwaway stuff. And I think that this country disposes of too much. It disposes of people. It disposes of artifacts. It disposes of antiques, that could be repurposed. It's just a matter of taking the time to think. It takes the idea, and you get into that idea, and then it all becomes much clearer of what can be done in a place. And so we took the ideas of an older genre of food, and we reclaimed that in a new iteration. So that cliche, we have homages here to our Southern roots, because we are all firmly in love with the Southern vernacular. But we are not stuck in that one way of doing it. We wanted to give allusion to it, but a new way. And that's the same thing with the food. It's an allusion to this great form that everybody's got an opinion. There's no food in this world that there are more people with an opinion on than barbecue. On a daily basis, that's reinforced, man. And so if we can make this environment where we salvage this, or we built this, or we took an antique radio and turned it into our server station, is a new way of looking at something, then the food is a new way of looking at barbecue. And so it's all a metaphor. And I love giving that extra layer of a round message. It comes back and forth.
What do you like best about your art? Is it producing it? Is it getting the feeling when it's done, or is it seeing other people interact with it?
I love people seeing it. It makes me work harder at those other aspects of it. But when a kid comes into your environment and explodes with excitement, or just stops and stares at something that's pure, it's real, and people love something so out of the ordinary. I built 200 stores of over the top, but I found it doesn't have to be huge to be impactful. And last night I was here, and we had a new group from Stockbridge that came in for a band, and they all just walked around and looked at the artwork and were fascinated, not knowing all the underlying metaphor, not knowing the story on this or that. They just the experience of it, and that made all the hours and hours and hours we spent on this stuff worth it more than anything.
Well, I'm so glad you're here on the square, and I'm amazed at where you took barbecue to the next level. I'm excited to see what you have coming up, especially in the music arena. I know you had a music group last night.
We did. We had a band last night. We've had 3 out of the 4 weekends we've been open, we've had music. We just wanted to get a bass line on the other weekend to see how we did without music, and we're all aficionados. But so we've had some cover bands in a couple of times, but then we've had jump swing blues bands in here, and so we're going to branch out to even more eclectic kinds of music coming in here. I really look forward to like the Jug Time Rag Band. We're trying to get those guys booked up here, which phenomenal Dixieland, but energetic Dixieland stuff, and a marching band. I'll put a marching band into place. I don't care. I love to see people just react to complete weirdness. I mean, we've talked about the psychedelia before. There's nothing more psychedelic than a marching band showing up where you don't expect them. And so we're looking forward to that, but we're really looking forward to people really realizing how much we're committed to being a part of the community of Marietta. My partners, they told me this is a town you'll fall in love with. And it didn't take long. I fell in love with this town because of the positivity and the energy and the thoughtfulness of so many people. And when they love you, they really love you.
Well, we're excited to have you here. I didn't have anything else to ask you. I wish everybody would come down, check out Hawg and Ale here on Powder Springs Street in Marietta. And thank you so much for your time. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for supporting Hawg and Ale. We've been just amazed at the response, and we want to be your place. Come on down.
All right. Thanks. Thanks once again for listening to Marietta Stories Podcast. We'll have a new episode out next week. Until then, if you go to the podcast app, you can subscribe. And if you wouldn't mind, tell a couple friends about the show so we can spread the word. Thanks.